everyone. Welcome to another edition of Exposure 365. I'm Goldyn P. Smith, and today I have Michael Andrew with me, the fabulous, just illustrious, just innocent looking, cuss like a sailor, just all around good, stylish, great guy that I happened to meet at an event because of his wonderful style. And I just approached him and I was like, hey, you have really great style. Can I talk to you for a second?
And I said, no. I said, no. No, you can't talk to me.
He said yes because we had a couple of shots of whiskey.
Yes,
So we're here today with Michael Andrew, and he has Style Architects. And so we're here today to discuss style, men's fashion, men's style, a couple of ventures that he's involved in, everything, the whole shebang. So.
Yes.
Introduce yourself to everyone that's watching.
Well, I am Michael Andrew, the chief architect of StyleArchitects.com and the co-owner of Trilogy Clothiers. Our goal is to help men tell their story through style. I believe that every man has a story, and that the story soon becomes history, or his story, and it all begins with a statement of style. So we want to make sure that every man is telling his own story and beginning to cultivate those statements that are going to set him apart from everybody else.
Okay.
So that's what we focus on.
Great, awesome. So let's get into it. So tell me about your history and your past experiences in fashion, and what was the defining moment to where you said, okay, I want to do this full-time or pursue this professionally or seriously?
Okay, so I'm originally from Austin, Texas, and in Austin, I played basketball, was a sports kid all throughout high school. Dressing up for me in high school was like the polo shirts that still were like slightly bigger. So when we tucked them in, it bellowed at the waist, and we were doing it if it was bellowing at the waist. Some jeans and the polos strapped. You remember the Velcro strap? I was fly in my mind. And then around senior year, I took an art class, and I've always been a guy who just enjoys creative, aesthetics of artistry and different mediums in that space. And so as a kid, I used to draw anime with friends, and I could never draw anime. I should say I attempted to draw anime, failed terribly, but I could always draw like clothing and things of that nature. So that was what I would focus on. Senior year comes, and I began to start designing things, and my art teacher came and said, you could like make a living designing clothes. And I was like, man, get out of here. Like, I don't believe you. Because in my mind, every time we went to the mall, it just was there. I never thought about the back end elements of how everything came together. And so she introduced me to like the Art Institute options and all those different types of things. But I still was focused on basketball at the time. So I ended up going to South Carolina, to a small, very, very small city or town in South Carolina, to play basketball. And that year in 2001 was when Sean John actually unveiled his first collection, and we were introduced to Farnsworth Bentley. And Farnsworth Bentley was probably the inception of me developing a keen interest in menswear and in classic menswear. And I don't know if a lot of people remember that time, but Kanye West had also come out. Pharrell was making his statement in the fashion as well as the rapping space as an artist, no longer a producer. So all these different guys were starting to emerge that were expressing themselves in very unique ways. Kanye was now the backpack rapper, right? But he had the Louis V backpack.
With the pink polo sweater.
With the pink polo sweaters. And so there was something very urbanly prep about that. And so I started to see guys really gravitate to certain different types of things. And so from there, fashion kind of just started to really take over. I was looking at different urban brands and was trying to figure out where my lane was going to be. I knew I wasn't going to stay at the school that I was at, so I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Fast forward to me moving to Atlanta the first time, and being able to see all the different elements that came with fashion. And Atlanta is a very fashion-oriented city. It's not necessarily a style-oriented city yet, but it's definitely very fashion-oriented. So going to Lenox Mall and seeing the luxury wing and seeing those items and how much they cost, and saying I may not need to touch this because this is expensive. kind of started my interest in luxury menswear. And so really began to have an affinity for polo. And this is actually when I met my mentor, who schooled me on the game. And one of the first things that he told me is something that the moniker that I kind of live by and convey to everybody else. And that was a quote by Pearl Bender. And the quote was that dress was the outward expression of a man's state of mind, and it was his attire that tells the world what he thinks of himself. And so circa 2004 was when that really began to become ingratiated in who I was and in the identity of what I was looking to express. Because he told me he was going to change me from the outside in, and I was like, what you mean you're going to change me from the outside in? But the responses, the way that young ladies would interact with me, the options that I had professionally, I got 2 jobs simply based on the way that I was dressed. Like, people were like, you look trustworthy. You look like you're hard working. I was like, if you only knew, but you paying, so I'm up in here. Happened. And then when I moved back home to finish up school, I then moved to New York. And New York was the place that I actually found myself, and I always say fell in love with myself. A lot of people thought that I moved to New York for fashion, and that was a piece of the puzzle, but it was really to ultimately embrace who I was, the sartorial guy who is a romantic, who's sensual, who enjoys these different types of things. And the thing that I love about New York is New York allows you the opportunity to be yourself, but not only to be yourself, but to find like-minded people. So I met wonderful people like a gentleman named Dandy Wellington, who dresses like he's in the 1920s, almost to the point of it being a costume, but it's very much him, and it's a representation of who he is. I got to work with the illustrious guys at Street Etiquette, who helped give me access to certain things and showed me what the breadth and the expansion of that creative mind could provide. Worked with Gear of Gearisms, who is a prominent fashion photographer. And so it just allotted me all these different types of opportunities. One of the biggest ones was me working or being shot by Bill Cunningham for a full week. Wow. Which was a unique experience. I didn't know who the old guy was at the time. He was just an old guy. But he was an old guy.
Okay.
But
but had you heard of him before?
I'd never heard of Bill Cunningham before.
Oh, wow.
So it was just this guy walked up to me and he would snap, 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 and he would give me this thumbs up with this, this warm, charming smile. And I was like, all right, like, you seem cool. Don't have me on any website looking crazy. But, it turned out a week later that I was in the New York Times style section and that this was the illustrious, the amazing Bill Cunningham. So watching his story and seeing the documentary that he had was amazing. And at that time, I was working for the Xenia Corp. And they were celebrating their 100 years of being in business. And so because of that, that helped me learn and taught me about the legacy that I was looking to lead. And what my 100-year plan is. And shout outs to Brooklyn Circus for that being their moniker and their motto. So all those different types of things kind of came together, but I still didn't know what my purpose was. I still didn't know how I was going to move. And it ended up being a friend of mine sitting down and saying, listen, you need to help guide people to get where they need to be. So we do that here now at Style Architects. It's all about telling that story and helping them get to where they want to be.
You're very stylish. And I'm sure you get a lot of compliments or what have you. So what is your thought process as you try to get dressed for the day?
So I get a lot of compliments and criticisms.
Okay.
So one of my thought processes is that this is art, right? And the conversation with art is that art is not necessarily supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to make you feel, right? It's a great quote by that. But I also think about being authentic. Nowadays I don't really think about it as much as I just kind of embrace the feeling. And my thought process is it romantic? Is it nostalgic? Is it sensual? Essentially, because that's just who I am. I'm a very poetic guy at my heart. I have the heart of a poet, self-proclaimed. You may disagree. But I have that, and it's also very whimsical, playful, colorful, and so that's what I like to put on. I like to put on colors. I like to put on textures. I like, those nice times or those lucky times when a young lady walks up and be like, I like the way that feels. Like, girl, it's boyfriend material. You better enjoy that. Like, and they'll just enjoy the situation. So that's just what I think about. But it's not really a thought process anymore. I don't have to think about it in the morning because I'm putting on me, and that's ultimately what I think about, is putting on me.
What advice would you share to someone who's trying to define their own style, especially with men's fashion?
Mm-hmm.
Because we see a lot of trends, we see a lot of niche things.
See some shit. Can we curse on here?
Yes,
Oh.
we can.
See some shit.
I introduced you as a cursor.
The colorful language guy. I'm colorful. It's colorful.
All the way around.
There you go.
But we see a lot of trends, men's fashion trends. You look like the classic man, what we have in our mind as the classic man. So why choose that as your narrative as opposed to niche or man leggings? Or and we'll talk more about that, man leggings, in a minute. But what?
Leggings. So first and foremost, for the tips, one of the things that we focus on with stylearchitects.com is you understanding the framework and what I call the 3 C's in developing your own personal style. And that's the consciousness of your character, number one. So who are you? Who are you when the clothes are off, behind closed doors? That's one aspect of your character. And then what's the role that you have to play? Shakespeare said all the world's a stage, and everybody in it is merely players. They're all characters that we have to convey. So you're a daughter, you're a mom, you're a sister, you're a friend, you're, subordinate, you're an employee, you're a person who is an entrepreneur. All these different hats require characteristics that still demand your integrity and your authenticity. So you have to make sure that it's attired that way. And then from there, we begin curating your closet, especially for menswear. It's not about you getting a whole lot of things. My mentor used to tell me, men don't buy clothes, they own them. Clothes don't change. The menswear doesn't really change. So it's better for you to begin creating a collection, and collections take time. They need to be curated. You have to be intentional about what you're purchasing, so that it is a uniform thought. It goes back to your consciousness. So everything tends to build on each other, and then ultimately understand that you're communicating something. We all judge books by their covers. We all are trying to tell a story, and the worst thing is, when the cool kids, I don't know if I'm using it right, so I'm sorry if I don't, but like when they say, yo, he read him, or yo, she read her, like, did she read the right story, or was this a miscommunication? Because that could be a compliment or, an insult depending on the situation. So for me, those are the 3 major things. Know who you are. Be unwaveringly convicted in what you are looking to communicate, and be unapologetic about it. If you're going to be that dude in the leggings, understand that that's going to communicate something. But if you're unapologetic about that, then hey, do your thing. Because in any story, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about making sure that you're consistent and you're showing integrity with what you're looking to do. So if you're following the trend, you're probably not being yourself. And so that's out of alignment with integrity. And I feel like that goes along with everything else that you're going to be looking to try to obtain in the rest of the world. If I'm trying to get a chick and I'm lying to her before I even say a word, then I'm out of integrity. If I'm saying that I am capable of doing something on the job site, again, based on my presentation, because I'm trying to get over, that looks inauthentic, and it creates a space of mistrust for other people, and that's never going to be a good situation. So those are probably the tips I could tell you just to start getting ready to develop your style.
Give me 3 key pieces that every man should have.
3 key pieces that every man should have are no pieces that every man should have, because every man shouldn't have 3 key pieces.
But okay, so for women, it's like make sure you have a little black dress. Don't matter, a little black cocktail, because you can get invited out for drinks or whatever. So this is what we are told.
Okay.
Have a little black dress.
Okay.
Always have some kind of lipstick or something.
Okay.
Or lip gloss or something like that.
Okay.
And to always have a good pair of shoes.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking, like, you pick up a lot of magazines, you see a lot of articles, you see a lot of news stories or fashion stories where style experts give their opinion on the key pieces that you need, like a white collared shirt or a good pair of slacks or a good pair of hard bottom shoes or whatever. So you don't subscribe to that?
I I understand what they're saying, but let's be very clear, and I may not ever get no sponsorship from this. I'm sorry. I may be sorry I said this, but it's important to understand that, those mediums have an agenda. So if every month I need to have content, then I need to tell every guy that they need these things. If I'm a blue collar worker who works in a mechanic shop, I wear a uniform every day, a literal uniform. I don't need suits. I don't need hard-toed shoes. Certain people would be like, well, what if you're going to church? Or what if you have to go to a wedding? Well, the reality of it is we live in such a casual culture now that that's not necessarily a strong representation of what you're going to need. Now, that guy may need a great pair of selvage denim jeans that he can wear, right? Because in that space, it'll be dark enough where it looks relatively formal. He may need a nice polo shirt because he doesn't really like wearing dress shirts. But that polo fits him well, and so he wears that out to the wedding. He's not going to be the most stylish guy, but he can be represented in a decent fashion. Do I believe that every guy should have certain elements? Yes. I think that every guy should have a great jacket that he can depend on. But what is that jacket? Is it a utility jacket? Is it a leather blazer? Is it a moto jacket? And where is he going in these different types of spaces? I think that, yes, he does need a great shirt, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a dress shirt. For him, it may be a Henley, or it may be a V-neck T-shirt. It may be a silk knit sweater. We need to evaluate who we are and what we're doing in those different types of spaces. I own jeans, but I don't really wear jeans. So for me, telling me that I need that and then need to make the investment to go get that is asinine to me. It doesn't really make any sense. So yes, you do need those elements. I do subscribe to the fact that every guy needs a quality pair of items. So if I was going to say that to anybody, it's that every man needs quality over quantity. If you see something that appeals to your interest, then yeah, go out and get it. But that is the three essentials. He needs qualitative items. He needs items that are going to assist him in his lifestyling and what he's looking to express. And lastly, he needs to make sure that they are going to have lasting and staying power. So that quality component kind of comes back into play, but it also is about him understanding how he needs to move, from the second aspect. So I don't think that every guy needs to have everything. You need some clothes so that you're not walking around naked. How about that? You need some clothes. So yes, you need your jacket, shirt, pants, shoes.